Australia is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Kubota global organisation. So we run a sales and distribution business within Australia and New Zealand, where we supply Kubota branded and other branded hardware to dealerships across Australia, and we provide sales and support and service and warranty solutions to those dealerships. Kubota Australia IT team services the business in all areas of IT, primarily around the operational requirements to keep business as usual functioning and support the different business requirements from sales and marketing through to finance and the logistics and supply chain parts of the business. The Power App side of things is very much operational in terms of building new capability, whereas we have a department which we call our apps team, but they're primarily focused on SAP, the ERP and accounting services. So to give you a high-level summary, it's probably the operations team that's leading the Power App solution as opposed to the application side. So there is crossover, but it's mainly led by operations. Solutions Group has been a fantastic partner in terms of identifying and problem-solving solutions. We're in the process of retiring some legacy applications and bringing on board a future platform, and we've identified the Power Stack as a way to improve Kubota's general capability and at the same time replacing legacy systems. So our primary focus has been about modernising, but also making it familiar to the end user. So Cloud Solutions Group has been fantastic in the initial scoping phases, helping us define the problem statement and then delivering to solution. She has been instrumental in developing a Power Apps base with which we continue to grow from. At this stage, we've developed 4 or 5 independent applications, and we see that extending to potentially 20 or 30 down the track. But the initial phase was largely around building the workflows and the design of those applications. So to make sure that we keep a consistent feel and make sure that the end user can adopt new apps as they come on board, Cloud Solutions Group was fantastic at setting that standard, and we're going to continue to use that throughout the projects that we foresee over the next 2 or 3 years. The IT team was approached by the logistics department to turn a paper-based process into a digitised and trackable and auditable process. A perfect example of this was our chain of responsibility application, which takes a inception to delivery approach on protecting a transit loading from loading the product and making sure that the truck driver is compliant and inducted, all the way through to delivery of those products to our end customer. So the chain of responsibility app was about digitising a paper-based process, which as a result of it being paper-based was largely not followed, impossible to audit, and generally wasn't complete in its use. So now it is something we can audit, we can preload deliveries, we can post-check whether processes have been followed correctly, and we can provide actionable reports at the end of that process, as required by the departmental managers. From a paper-based solution to a fully digital solution meant that we could retire a legacy application, which by its very nature is hard to manage, requires additional IT support to maintain, and generally speaking, licenses expire over a period of time, which we needed to move from that system and find a way that we develop a platform that can take us forward. So as much as there was an impetus to move these platforms across and certainly a need to develop new capability, one of the glaringly obvious improvements was around reducing risk and building a compliance workflow that allowed us to identify problems and fix them, but also provide a reporting framework back to the authorities, including our internal legal team. By developing this application and providing a digital interface for data entry, we not only improved the go-live time and the ability to capture data in real time, but we also reduced the reliance upon a paper-based solution, which was largely unable to be audited or managed easily. In addition, we have an ongoing managed services arrangement with Cloud Solutions Group, which means my team, my operations team, largely don't require a day-to-day overhead to manage the system. If there are problems, and inevitably problems can occur, they're either user-related or systems-related, and the Cloud Solutions team are available to help us through any of those problems. 3 answers to that. 1, if it's an existing process, it's almost like a lift and shift. This is what we do, this is what you need to do. You sort of just join the dots, but put the Power Apps front end on it and change what you have to make it align to the Microsoft Power App platform. The second option is when we've got a process but we want to make it better, there's obviously a redesign, which is less about scoping and more about just thinking outside the box. And then the third option is brand new capability. Where do we start? And the COR, or the Chain of Responsibility App, was pretty much that. We had a paper-based legal document as well as we had a legal document as well as a paper-based workflow, and we just had to bring them together. So we kind of let them imagine it a little bit, how it could work. They're the guys that have done this before. We've never done it. So we sort of let them lead us. And we were very happy with the outcome. And there was very little need for feedback in terms of the workflow because it was already fairly well structured. So to answer your question, we identify the high use apps and we move them across first, or if they're a critical compliance app, or if they're a legal requirement, and then we sort of just chip away one at a time on the rest. User adoption is probably one of the major challenges to bringing in a new system, especially one that has been paper-based and is now being moved into a digital platform. However, we've generally found that the onboarding process and the testing phases introduces these systems to the end user in a very slow and considered way. The training's been fantastic, and the user acceptance testing has meant that we've got valuable feedback from our teams. And then eventually, because we're moving into a tablet-based interaction and data entry for the end user, it's a very familiar interface. So the adoption's been fantastic. And despite the fact that possibly in the early days, the first or second application took a little bit of time to get moving, now we're finding the user adoption is hugely improved because that familiarization is already there. CSG has been very approachable in taking on new challenges. They've provided us with a way that we can rapidly innovate without the process of going through huge scoping documents and design phases. The benefit of working with CSG in a bespoke, focused and small team organisation is that when we throw them a problem statement, they don't overthink it. They get down to the nuts and bolts. They create a platform that can bring us to a minimum viable product very quickly, and that gets us into the hands of the end user. So the benefit of working with CSG and why I would recommend them to work with other people is that you get rapid development, you get a very cost-effective and easy to follow process, which is hugely scalable. So the benefit is you can start small and you can grow your capacity quite quickly. So far of building our Power Apps base has been very easy. It's adopted some familiar Microsoft technologies. It has leveraged some of our existing assets in our Microsoft Office space, and it's been a very low-code, quick-to-market solution. So when working with CSG, they've obviously used the assets that we already have, in whether that be a data asset or a licensing capability, and they've very quickly turned it into a new product. So we don't find ourselves with greater licensing overheads. We're not maintaining a code base, but we also have a support agreement for those inevitable times when things don't work out perfectly. So from end to end, it's been a very easy lead up to developing and then obviously maintaining those apps over time. So working with CSG on the Power Apps base has been really easy. If I can make any recommendations, I would say don't be frightened of what seems like a big project. They can be broken down into small parts. They're easily achievable. You get to a minimum viable product very quickly, and there's no onerous end-to-end systems development. You're introducing a platform that's already very familiar to your end user base. If you're in the Office 365 or Azure environment, you already have a lot of those license entitlements. So my recommendation would be don't wait, get moving, because once you start, you'll open up more opportunities for new solutions that you can introduce to the business, and that momentum will only grow over time. Josh and the Cloud Solutions Group team for many years Their previous mindset was around business run and business objectives, whereas they've pivoted to a Power Apps, low-code, Microsoft stack environment. And I think they've met the market really well in terms of what's needed in today's IT landscape. We all need infrastructure, we all need support, but there are a lot of businesses out there that do that at scale. What we needed was a bespoke solution that was easy to bring to market and very two-way in terms of our building capability over time. So setting those expectations for the CSG team meant that we changed the way we would have normally worked with an IT vendor, but we're getting the benefits of those outcomes now that we're working with them on a different level and trying to benefit from existing systems rather than build new systems from scratch.